Welcome everyone. Today we are implementing RESTful API using .NET Core, and let's talk about REST and RESTful API while I'm implementing in-memory repository for the sample. First of all, let's take a look at the REST term. Abbreviation sounds like REpresentational State Transfer. By the definition, it is a software architectural style and approach for representing some kind of resources via network. It is built on the HTTP layer, the fourth layer in the classic TCP/IP stack layers, because its creator also was one of the HTTP's creators. So let's dive into the RESTful itself. The resource stays on the top of the REST. We can do some operations with the resource by different HTTP methods like get, post, put and delete. There are more methods actually, but we will use only them. Like any other architectural style, REST has its constraints, and among them it should be stateless like HTTP, it should have cacheability, each of the resources should be determined by the unique URL and others, but most of the HTTP constraints is inherited by the RESTful. So there is no constraint for the formats of the data. It can work with many formats like JSON, XML and HTML. But mostly it is JSON because it's more lightweight than XML and more cross-platform than HTML. So we can consume with JSON like mobile clients, like web clients, desktop clients, etc., which is not possible with HTML format. So let's look at REST building blocks. Each resource should have own and unique identifier. The exact operation should be determined only by HTTP method. There are 4 basic HTTP methods for operations with resources. The first one is get method. It should return resource by specified URL. It cannot have a body because actually you don't need the body. If resource is found, then return 200 OK code. If there is no resource by specified URL, then return 404 not found response code. There is actually a problem because many people say that we should return an empty array or a null, but with 200 OK result if URL is valid but the resource actually doesn't exist. The Wikipedia told us about 404 code that in computer network communications to indicate that the browser was able to communicate with a given server, but the server couldn't find what was requested. From RFC specification, 404 result code indicates that the origin server did not find a current representation for the target resource or is not willing to disclose that one exists. And what about 200 OK code on GET request? RFC said that it should return a representation of the target resource, so it cannot return nothing, because there should be some resource by the specified URL, if it exists. Okay, let's move on. The post method. It should create a resource. If the resource is created, we need to return 201 created and attach location header into headers with the location where a new resource is located. If method creates nothing, then return 200 OK or 204 no content. About the put method, it behaves similar to post, but it usually used like update method, but also it can create new resource. If it creates a new resource, then return 201 created response. If put only updates the resource, then return 200 or 204. Patch method. It has some difficulties actually in implementation. According to the REST specification, it should partially update the resource and nothing else. I have no project where this method was implemented actually, so for now we won't use it. It is possible to do that with JSON, nuggets or by reflection, but we won't do that. And the last one, delete method. It should delete the resource by a specified URL. If the operation is successful, then return 204. If it is not successful, return 404. That's all about the methods. Let's talk about some problems that you can encounter during the implementation of the RESTful API. For example, if the operation takes a long time, then we can return 202 accepted response and provide a URL for checking the status in the location header for sure. For filtering, we must always use cat, and for filter parameters we can use, for example, query parameters, because I saw the project where people use the post method for filtering the results, and it is not a RESTful approach. And the last one section, I want to talk about the versioning. During the development, our resources can be changed, and for the detecting the changes, we can use versioning. We actually have different ways to do it. It can be done by URL parameters in the routes, by query strings, by headers, and eventually by custom media types, but I've never seen the custom media types for the versioning. But anyway. So here we have our RESTful service, and let's test it by Postman tool. Great, let's create this one more time. Got success response, headers. Let's paste headers here, or not here. Great, we have the entity and return this entity. Here is our resource, like entity, and let's change this by put method. The URL is the same, but great, we've got 200 response. Let's check if the changes reflected our entity. Yes, all is okay, and eventually let me delete this entity by the delete HTTP method here. We've got 204 no content response, and that means that we have no entities now. Again, if we create new one, we will got these entities here. So thank you for the attention. I'll leave official Microsoft article link in the bottom so we can read this. This is so helpful and useful, and I recommend for all of you to read this article. Thank you so much again, and see you later.